Hello again, and this is our fourth Luminaire. I'm losing track. This is our May Luminaire Club. We are going to talk about stabilizer today because we don't want to jump into doing a whole bunch of embroidery without going over stabilizer and how you can risk, I don't know how to pronounce this, how you can eliminate the puckering that you might be getting in your embroidery designs. Because as you know, it's frustrating when you start a project and you have to redo it because it's puckered. You have to throw your garment out because there's no way you're going to rip it out, and you have to redo it. So having the right stabilizer is the key to doing it right. And not only having the right stabilizer, but also knowing about how to hoop appropriately and then how to prep your fabric. So for instance, I do not hoop any of my fabric. I actually hoop the stabilizer and free float the fabric. And a lot of people say, well, how can you do that? Because how would you hold it down? Well, because you have the Luminaire or the Stellaire or the Dream Machine, you have the basting stitch option, which in the last Luminaire Club, we actually used the basting stitch, which is that little flower with the box around it, the little dot, dot, dot box around it. That is the basting stitch. So you definitely want to use that, or 505 spray. The reason why we didn't use it with the masks is because I didn't want anybody breathing that in. It does dissipate, it does wash away, but you know, for me, I just put my mask on. I don't wash it until I wash it after I've worn it. So I didn't want to have that in and breathe that in. So there's a lot of ways to do things. There's never a wrong way to do it unless you have your garment turns to trash. Then there's the wrong way to do it. But there's a good way to explore. That's what I've been doing over years and years of embroidery. I just explore and try things out and listen to what other people have done. It's called troubleshooting. You just figure out what works best. And that's why when people call me and ask me questions about stabilizer, I usually can give them from my experience because I pretty much have done it all. So there's many different types of stabilizer. You have tearaways. You have many different tearaways. You have, this is the waffle weave tearaway. It's from Madeira. A lot of people love to use this waffle weave for doing applique on their sewing machine because it rips so easily. So it literally just rips. And it's kind of like got a little rubber type look to it. And you can see it has got holes in it. So it's one of the best and most popular ones for people to use for doing regular sewing and applique and that. A lot of people don't realize, but a lot of times their machine will actually tell you when you're using decorative stitches or when you're putting in buttonholes to use an interfacing or a tearaway stabilizer. This is the one that you want to get. We run out of it very fast. So if you do want it, just let us know, and when we put our big order in, when it comes in, we will call you and let you know it's in. You also have, from many different companies, you have many different types of stabilizer. So when you're doing a design from OESD, they'll probably tell you, okay, you need to use fusible woven cutaway or tearaway, because they have it, or stabilistic tearaway or wash away. Not wash away, cutaway. Doesn't mean that you have to use OESD and you can't use any of your tearaways or cutaways that you have at home. That is absolutely not true. It's just they're promoting their project. So that's why they tell you, oh, you need to use soft woven tearaway stabilizer because they want you to buy their product. But you can always call me and say, Anna, I have this. It's asking for this. Is that okay to use? And I'll absolutely tell you my opinion. So you have many different options. When I do quilting, I like to use a wash away, but I want a very light wash away. So not wash away, I'm sorry, we're going to talk about cutaway first. I'm getting you guys confused already. Cutaway. When I'm doing quilts, I like to use a very soft, light cutaway because I can stitch it in with my seams. You can get fusible no-show mesh, which is a very light cutaway. You can get fusible or non-fusible, which is called no-show mesh. This one's fusible. You can tell because it kind of glistens. You can see the glistening on the side. You can tell that this is fusible because this is actually the stuff that you fuse down. So you can fuse this right onto your fabric. or you can hoop it and then you can just use the iron. If you have a small iron, just iron that right on, and then I would still baste it because it does not have a huge amount of glue on it. But a lot of people like the fusible because you're able to fuse and iron it on, and it kind of holds it a little bit. So you have that option for, I like doing this for quilting, anything like table runners, anything like that. No-show mesh, fusible or non-fusible is what I use. Other cutaways, you have heavy, medium, or light cutaways. Those I like to use when I'm doing, if you ever buy a, what do you call it, a fleece jacket, or you buy anything that you wear like a t-shirt or anything, and you do embroidery on it. If you look at the back, you'll see stabilizer, this white stabilizer or black stabilizer around it. That's because when you wash it, if you use a wash or a cutaway stabilizer, it wears better in the wash and wears for all the times you throw it in the wash. So you must use a heavy cutaway when you're doing something like sweatshirts or something bulky and you're using something really dense. If you're doing something more of a medium type shirt, use a medium stabilizer. If you're doing something light like t-shirts or like a light, I don't know, what would it be? I always wear everything heavy because I'm always cold. But a light rain jacket or something like that, you might want to just use a light cutaway stabilizer. Another thing that I tell people with cutaway stabilizer or any stabilizer, except for tearaway, because if you pull on it, it will rip, because that's why it's called tearaway. You want to take it and you want to pull on it. If it has a stretch to it, like this does, when you pull it, you want to use two pieces and you want to put them at more of an X, at a 45-degree angle. And the reason why is because you lose that stretch. If you have that stretch in there, what happens is that's what helps cause puckering, is because the stabilizer is stretching along with your fabric that stretches. You put it at a 45-degree angle, it doesn't stretch as much at a 45-degree angle. It's more taut, a type of stabilizer. And what also helps is if you put 2 layers, because 2 layers is just going to be, it's just going to hold in the hoop a lot better. Especially if you have a big hoop, and with a big hoop you have more gaps where you don't have the pressure on those hoops. If you have a big hoop, you can also put masking tape, wrap masking tape around your hoop. That helps to grip the fabric too, if you're hooping your fabric. I personally don't, but that's really up to you. So that is cutaway, and you can get them in all, from OESD, Dime. Dime products have them in this. I like these the best because you can put them back in. It tells you exactly what it is. It says sew and wash, and then it also tells you exactly where you bought it, so you can get it again. That's why I like these canisters. So that's another thing that I do like about these. You can get them from Floriani. I mean, I could go on and on. So anyway, what we do is we bring in the stabilizer that we find is the best quality for the lowest price. And so we find that usually the embroidery store, which is Dime, is more bang for your buck on stabilizer. So that's what we create. But we've been bringing in more OESD because OESD has a little bit more stabilizers that actually work better with freestanding lace. So we're going to jump into sew and wash. So there's a lot of wash away stabilizer. You do not want to use, if you're doing freestanding lace, you want to use a stabilizer that's going to have more of a fabric type wash away look to it, not a plastic type look to it. And the reason why is because this actually, when it washes away, forms a glue that makes the fusible stable, or the, I'm getting tongue-tied, the freestanding lace stiff, so that you can actually build it like a 3D puzzle, and get these, villages or these little tea light holders or whatever you're making stand up. So that's why you want to use stabilizer that is not that plastic type of stabilizer, because this is going to give you that glue that will help to hold. But you do not want to use like this on a terry cloth towel, because what it'll do is when you wash it away, it's going to form this crusty glue onto your terry cloth towel, which is almost impossible to get off. I always tell people a tearaway, or if you want to do a wash away, do heat and gone, which is a little bit different than a wash away, but you can get like a plastic type of wash away that doesn't have as much glue to it. Trim it around and then just dab it with some water and it'll wash away. You can also use heat and gone. So we're gonna, now that we went through sew and wash, we're gonna go through some heat and gone. Heat and gone is gonna look like plastic. And this you don't use a whole lot of. You actually use this when you're doing like terry cloths, or you're doing something where, like a t-shirt, where you're doing something very dense and it kind of can sink into the fabric. Or if you're doing, like I did bibs, animal bibs, and what happened was the eyes were white and everything else was like bright lime green or bright red. And when I cut out the applique piece, some of the red from the animal actually shone through in the eyeballs. If you put this down, it actually stops it from seeing through. You can also get these toppers that are color toppers that you will help stop that so you don't see anything popping through the white embroidery. But what this does is when you lay it down on like such things as a terry cloth, it won't let all those little pieces of the towel pop through your embroidery. This will actually keep that away. And then when you're done with it, you just take the steam of the iron and it just disappears. It's great. I even use this instead of using wash away on towels. This is what I'd rather use because I can just trim it away and then take my heat of my iron and it's like magic. It disappears. So I do love this stuff. And when you're doing topper, all you have to do is cut out the piece, the size that you need, and just lay it right on top and let it stitch over it. If it rolls over or whatever, who cares? It's going to disappear anyway. Fusible woven cutaway. This is going back to cutaway. This is just a different, we'll talk about this when we talk about dream weave. This will probably make more sense. Tearaway. I didn't talk about a whole lot of tearaway. Tearaways are going to be used more when you're doing linen towels. If you're doing like a flour sack towel, you might want to use a tearaway. You have heavy, medium, light tearaway that you can pick from. And so those are options that you can pick from depending upon what you're doing. The more dense your project is, the heavier you might want to use. But I do highly suggest if you use a heavy tearaway or even a lighter medium, you might want to use 2 pieces just because if it's very dense, it can start already ripping away. And by having a backup, it always helps. So definitely tearaway you want to use more for doing linen towels, flour sack towels. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, hats, if you're doing hats. In the hat hoop, usually on the Luminaire, you probably won't do a hat. I would highly suggest doing a badge and you can make anything out of a badge because you can get the badge work sampler stabilizer pack and make a badge and just stick it right on the hat hoop or on a onesie rather than trying to hoop that and stitch it out. We could talk more about that. We're actually going to do a Luminaire Club on badge making, and actually I think that's what we're going to do in our next Luminaire Club is we will actually teach you how to take an image and incorporate it into a badge and then stitch it out and why you want to use that instead of doing a hat, you know, in the hoop or doing a onesie in the hoop, and why you do not want to do that because you do not want gray hair early in life if you don't have to, or want to rip out your hair, and that you will do when trying to hoop a onesie. So tearaway, this is also a tearaway. It just, you can tell if it's tearaway and you don't have it marked by if you can tear it away. If you can tear it, then it's a tearaway. If you cannot, it's a cutaway. This, you're just going to have to take my word for it, but you could take the steam of an iron, take a little piece, take the steam of iron, and it should disappear. I'm bouncing all over the place. It's been a long day, so I apologize if I'm confusing you. But perfect stick, tearaway stabilizer. This is kind of like what we were doing with the masks. If you're doing something where you're doing a smaller piece and you can't hoop it or you can't baste it, or you can baste it but you don't want to baste it or whatever, or even if you do want to baste it but you don't want it to move, perfect stick works great. It is expensive, but that's because it has a lot of adhesive. It works really well to make sure that your garment does not move. and that is a tearaway. You can also get a sticky stabilizer in wash away. And the reason why people use that is when they're doing freestanding lace, sometimes if you're doing something really dense, it pulls the wash away out of the hoop. If you use the fusible or the sticky sew and wash, it sticks kind of to the hoop, so you won't have that problem. So a lot of people like to use that, but more that you buy the adhesive type stabilizer, the more expensive it's going to be because they're adding all that adhesive to the stabilizer. So I'm just trying to see if I have a price on this one, but I know that these can run about $80 for a roll of these. Next thing I want to show you is that OESD actually has some pretty cool new products for doing freestanding lace. This is a new one that it came out with, Badge Master. A lot of people were finding that their freestanding lace wasn't getting stiff enough, so they were having a hard time getting it to stand right. The Badge Master will help that. So a lot of people, she's smiling, so I'm thinking there's somebody behind me, and there's nobody behind me. So the Badge Master is just something that in OESD, some of the freestanding laces, they're going to ask you for Badge Master and sew and wash stabilizer. So you're gonna follow the instructions. Some of them have you lay one of the sew and wash and one of the Badge Master. Some of them actually have you lay the Badge Master on top of your fabric. It just depends upon what you're doing and how they ask you to do it. Just follow the directions. But this stuff is awesome. I have to say, I didn't think I'd find another stabilizer that I like more than sew and wash, or no-show mash, but this is my favorite. I always have to have an extra one just in case I run out. So, and then you have soft web. This one, it actually tells you it's paper-backed fusible web. Ultra-fine web keeps projects soft and flexible. Holds applique securely without adding bulk. Easy hand machine finish. Soft enough to quilt through. Fuses even without bubbling. So this would be an excellent one to possibly use when you're doing something like, I'm just finishing up a bench pillow with Kimberbell, and it's a lot of applique, a lot of like sewing with vinyl and things like that. So they usually ask for a tearaway. This is a perfect tearaway because it doesn't add bulk and it doesn't get stiff. I love this stuff for that. So that is Kimberbell's coming out with their own stabilizers too, so they, you may want to get theirs to follow exactly what they're saying, but this will work if you don't have the Kimberbell stabilizers. You do not have to go with the product with what company you're sewing with, because then you'll have stabilizer after stabilizer after stabilizer, and then it even gets more confusing. Now that I've talked your ear off, I'm going to talk a little bit more. I'm going to try to slow down a little bit. I'm talking really fast. I always tell you when you come into the store, when you tell me that you're having puckering issues, did you prep your fabric? And then everybody looks at me and goes, what do you mean, did you prep your fabric? What I mean is, did you starch your fabric like you never starched a fabric before? You want to starch. A lot of people have best press. I'm not a big fan of best press when you're doing embroidery on the embroidery machines, because if you're doing embroidery on the embroidery machines, the best press doesn't get it stiff enough. But you can purchase, I'm going to do a stage exit real quick to grab it. You can get stabilizer in your laundry department, at the grocery store, at Walmart, at Target. And you can get, I get the Faultless, but there's other ones out there. And it's just regular starch, and this is stuff your grandma made or used. I know my grandma would have a bucket full of this stuff. And, dip it in the bucket and then iron it, and it comes out, your shirts come out like they're cardboard. That's what this does. I love it. It's heavy duty, and it really starches your fabric. So if you're going to do embroidery, hands down, you've got to do this. And we get it for the shop for you guys, because some of us, like me, I hate going to Walmart. It's busier than busy, and it's always at the back of the store, which takes me forever to get there, and I just need starch. So lucky me, I have a friend who I send to Walmart and say, buy all the starch you can find, and she'll buy a cart full of starch for us, so we have it at the stores for you. So This is always available at the store, and if it's not, I will send my friend to go get more. And I'm looking at Wendy because it's always Wendy. She's the one taping. So, and then what you need to do is you need to prep your fabric. I used your Dreamweave Ultra, but OESD from R&K or Floriani. And you can get it by the yard. It is expensive. It is $10 a yard, but it's worth it because your garments always come out better than if you don't use it. And you just fuse it to the back of your main piece of fabric, and then you fuse it down, or you can hoop it in if you're hooping. I don't. I just lay it down and then I baste it the whole piece down. So fuse it to your fabric, your main piece of fabric, not your applique pieces. You don't need that, but on your main piece of fabric that you're using. And then what you're going to do, and this is the same stuff. It's just this is more like cloth. This is going to be a little bit more stretchy. So this is more for silk. I use it for regular doing cotton quilts and things like that too. But this is mainly for doing garments and things like that too. But I love it for doing quilts too. But this is actually, and it says lightweight woven fabric with all over fusible. As body and light to medium weight fabrics, helps prevent fabric puckering. Ideal for large embroidery designs or multi-hoop projects. Use in combination with tearaway or cutaway stabilizer. So you can use this pretty much for anything, and I use it for everything. So for instance, I'm going to go over here and grab what I was working on yesterday. And what I did, this is one of the bench pillows from Kimberbell that I'm working on. I will be working on the July, or the red, white, and blue one that we're doing a class on here in 2 weeks. But this is the Ginger's Kitsch Christmas pillow. And this is done, there's a lot of different appliques. You've got vinyl, you've got felt, you've got organza with glitter on it. I mean, you name it, we've got it. And it's got applique. This is all felt. This is mylar. This is vinyl. So you've got all of that. And when you bring that in, it starts puckering. It can start puckering your fabric by putting a piece of the Dreamweave Ultra or the fusible woven in there. You stick that on there and it helps so you don't get the puckering all the way around. You notice there's no puckering around here. And the reason why is because I put that on. The first time I made this, I did not put it on and it was just a mess. I mean, I had gatherings here because it had pulled it in. I don't have that problem with this. It just lays beautifully. I have, I have to iron, but other than that, this is ironing issues, but because I had it folded all up. But you don't get the puckering. Now, I noticed on here I ironed it, and so it kind of puckered, or it didn't pucker, but it's gotten a little wrinkly. You could put a piece underneath this fabric and that will help take care of that. But I didn't get that with this. I think it's because I didn't put any starch in there. So I'll re-iron it and I'll starch it and it'll lay flat. But you'll notice I don't have puckering in any of this, and it laid nice and flat because I starched the crap out of it before I even embroidered, and then I put on the main fabric. I put, and you can see it's right there. You can see it is the Dreamweave Ultra, and it's just right in the fabric. I just fused it right onto the back, and that's all you do. And then it's on there. You sew it right in with the seams. It doesn't add that bulk, and it just lays nice and beautiful, and you don't have the puckering. I wanted to do one Luminaire Club on this because I have a lot of people that keep coming in and getting frustrated because they're getting puckering, or I'm on the Luminaire Club Facebook page and I see a lot of people get frustrated because of that too. And that's one thing I really wanted to touch on. What you use to prep your fabric is going to make a huge difference as to how your garment's going to turn out and how many times you have to redo a block, which none of us like to do that. So by doing these tips and tricks, you'll be able to solve a lot of those problems. I'm going to leave that because I threw a lot at you. There's a lot more stabilizer. We even have more at the shop that we can go into, but we'll touch more on specific stabilizers when we're doing projects and why I'm using those stabilizers over using something else. But I just want to touch on basic what cut away, tear away, wash away, and the fusible Dreamweave Ultra, what that is all for, and why we have 4 different versions of tearaway, why we have 3 different versions of cutaway, and they all have different uses. So, and some of you might say, you know what, I tried using the fusible no-show mesh for my quilt and I didn't like it. You may not like it. Marie might not like it. She thinks this is her counter. You just, if you don't like the suggested, it's all trial and error. Everybody likes something different. So we can always find you something else that you might like better. But this is what I find has worked for me when I do my projects, and they always turn out so much nicer than if I hadn't used them. So I'm going to let you go today. Today was a little shorter one, but next time what we're going to do is we're actually going to use the Badge Master. I believe that's what we're going to do. Don't quote me on that, because if I can't get Marie, I'm sorry, she's digging into her treats.
She had her head stuck in the treat bag.
Here, go get it. If I can't get enough of the stabilizer to do the Badge Master class, we'll push it back 1 month. But I'm going to try to get that set up so that we can do that, and we'll make our own badges. So you can even take a regular design that's on your embroidery machine, and you can turn it into a badge, and you can make those. And I'll tell you all the reasons why you would want to do that. Some of you might be like, I'm never going to do that. But you never know. So we'll do that next time, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do in the future Luminaire clubs. If you have any suggestions of what you want to learn, please let us know so that I can get that on the docket for the next few months. It won't be probably immediately, but if you want to go over things, we're going to be doing this for years and years to come. So we'll make sure we get it on there, but I'll try to bump it up as fast as I can, knowing that that's something you want to do. So for instance, if you want to do photo stitch, or we're going to go through my design center. But if you want to do something with photo stitch, or you want to do something with my design center, specific things in my design center, we will go over all of that. I am wanting to touch on quilting with your Luminaire. And I was thinking about doing that with one of the bench pillows. We are probably going to do that for the October bench pillow, which we are going to have a class on the October bench pillow, which is the Halloween bench pillow, around August, September timeframe. And I'm thinking that's when we're going to do the quilting in the Luminaire Club. But I just want to let you know what we have coming up. But if you have any other ideas, please send them my way, because I would love to make sure we touch on that when we do our Luminaire clubs. If you have nothing else, if I have nothing else, I don't have anything else, I'm going to let you go. Call if you need anything, and we will see you next time.